brothers and sisters. Today, me and my former LDS missionary companion, we're going to tell you how to overcome with this one weird trick and see if this don't make sense to you. But first I got to say that from the world headquarters, from the catacombs, indeed from deep within the bowels of Preston Flat, me and my former companion, Elder Turdsley, we say, pay close attention to what we're going to say today, because we're going to present away from the hidden secrets of the ages, or just from wherever it came from. So, what is this weird trick, you ask? The weird trick starts by learning how to use the frame of the human body to sit steadily in devotion in the midst of a changing world. Because you're going to sit in devotion, whatever tradition you're in, whatever religion, or even just in life, you're going to try to seek a steady and balanced place, a place that's steady and stable. And then in that place, the world around you will continue to move and change and present itself in whatever ways it does, new ways, ways that have never happened from before the beginning of time. Why would I say that? Because just do this. Just sniff in some air particles and then think for a moment. Those particles of air that you just sniffed in, that exact combination of air particles, that thing has never ever happened before. In fact, you are different than you've ever been, man. Your hair is a different length. You got different food in you. You may think you're sitting in the same boring old place, but really around you, everything is moving and changing in whatever way it does. That's just the impermanence of life. New things are created, new forms come into formation, and then they change, they just pass away. And in the middle of it all, you sit here in whatever way you do, right? Even the planets up in the heavens, they're moving, they're in new places. The stars, everything's changing. So without being too long-winded, I just want to say that when you sit there, the world does present itself to you in new sights, sounds, feelings, smells, tastes, everything. And there's a way that you can actually set up the equivalent of an old-fashioned scale using the frame of the human body, or a yoke, if you will. Some say it may be the equivalent of the old Christian yoke that they talk about. Who says that? I do. So there's a way to actually sit in devotion and use the frame of the human body to set up a yoke, right? You may think, well, what does this have to do with addiction? Well, what I'm going to tell you is there's a way to gather a point on one side, a point on the other, and having gathered these 2 points, when the world presents itself to you in all these new ways, each unique presentation invites a turn away or a bailing on this place to go outward, seeking things of the world. And that's what addiction is. That's what yielding to temptation is. So you can actually do this. And I'm going to give you a simple example of how to do it, okay? You're sitting there, let's just say you're sitting there. And can you feel the sitting bones where you have one on this side, one on the other side, where you meet the chair when you're sitting, right? And I would ask you at this time just to spend the next 30 seconds as I talk to you, or the next minute, seeing if you can feel both of them evenly. Okay, I'm going to keep talking, but just feel both the sitting bones and see if you can feel them evenly. And by feeling them evenly, you're becoming established in this place between opposites, between the right and the left, a very straight and very narrow place. that because you've set up a scale, you have a way to know, yes, you're feeling both evenly, but you might find that it's not that easy to feel them both evenly. You might find yourself drifting toward one side or another in response to the arrival of input from sight, sound, and the other sense impressions. So what I'm telling you, you can keep doing that or not if you want, but basically what I'm saying is you can literally surf life if you know how to set up this kind of a scale. Just the simplest example of feeling both sitting bones evenly, and then around you might be sights, sounds, and what you do is you actually train just like a surfer or a skateboarder would, that no matter, like surfing for example, no matter what the wave, it's self-evident how to stay balanced, because the wave is instructive and there's a place of balance that can be found and held to and abided in, right in the middle of all the change, if you use the frame of the human body as a surfer would to assist. So how's that like surfing? Well, let's say this, surfers have a foot on one side of the board, a foot on the other, and then between the two they sink their center of gravity, and then what? They welcome life. They welcome the waves, because they don't go out there to sit on the ocean and expect there won't be waves. No, they want a good combination of waves, because this is where the fun is. This is where the sport is. And similarly, man, if you can just learn to feel both sitting bones evenly, you may be amazed at what changing conditions around you will invite a lean outward into the world. And so in so many of the religious traditions, this place is center place, and a lot of them it's called me or it's called I. It just means that basically the idea that the kingdom of God is not low here, not low there, but it's within you. And the idea that, and then you get to actually practice. Lovest thou this place, the place of I, the place of me. Lovest thou me more than these. Because if you love this place, then you're like the one that plows a field and holds steadily to it without looking back. Because even looking back, as Jesus said, it means you're not fit for the kingdom of God. So if you don't look back, then what is this? What is this if you can hold to this? This is devotion. And whatever tradition you're in, you can develop and apply this kind of devotion in your life to stay steadily on track. Well, what about overcoming temptations using this method, or addictions? So what happens is, I've used this example before, but you can literally train in so many. If you train steadily in this way, then you will have trained through all kinds of different presentations, all kinds of combinations in life. And the better you get at keeping to this place, the better you are at not going out after the temptation or the addiction. And I use the example of the beautiful woman, Like if I was sitting here surfing, literally just feeling both sitting bones evenly. And let's say perhaps an ugly woman walks past. Boom, boom, boom. And she's a woman, but she's not that good looking, right? So I can just feel the sitting bones evenly. And if I start to lean outward, I'll feel it. I'll know exactly which way I've moved. And I'll know exactly what direction to bring it back. And with certainty, I'll know when I've arrived exactly at balance, because I'll feel both sitting bones evenly again. You see, this is really instructive. So first, the ugly woman walks by, and I can stay balanced. Then an ugly woman with the most beautiful dress you've ever seen She walks by. So now it's a different combination. You see what I'm saying? Different combination of visual sense impressions. And then, so it's different now because I'm also surfing the appearance of that dress. And through that, I train that, no, that doesn't draw me out either. And then the beautiful woman with the addition of perfume, a magnificent, amazing perfume. She walks past, and even with the perfume, I'm not led outward because I can steadily stay here, and I know I'm staying here because I'm feeling both sitting bones evenly. And the sitting bones are just one example. You can use other points such as K27, K21, or just any points. But I suggest in the beginning to use the sitting bones because you're already used to sitting. And as you sit, you're already used to just relaxing downward onto the sitting bones. And then from here, you can use just the tiniest little correction to keep evenness between right and left, to surf and hold to this straight and narrow place, this straight gate between right and left. And it's the same for the other opposites, like too high and too low. There's also this plane. And these planes are embodied when people make the sign of the cross, like that, you see. So we're talking about, we've already trained with the ugly woman, with the pretty dang good-looking dress and the smelly and the good perfume. So now you have, so next you have a pretty common-looking woman, not ugly, not good-looking. She walks past, and so you surf that, right? Not a problem. I can keep her, and then that same common woman, she does a little jiggle as she walks past. She like hams it up a little bit, to try to. And so you have the addition of that movement, okay? Even though it's moving, I can still surf, I can still hold to this place. And then she'll have that beautiful dress, that same dress that the other woman had, but this is it. This is what I'm telling you. You've already trained for that dress. So that part you've got down pretty much. So the common woman has that dress on. And so even though she's got the dress on, it's not like it's a whole lot of added extra on this side that could draw you out, you see. Even if she puts on that amazing fragrance that the other lady had on. You've trained with the fragrance too, also. To do what? To hold to and abide in this place and keep and choose this greater part. And keep to this one good thing, and to not go outward into the world toiling and spinning after one thing or another. And so that's just really simple. But then you get the beautiful woman that walks past, just wearing a regular common dress. That's going to be a different equation too. But the thing is, are you going to be a psychologist and try to figure out, well, that woman attracts me more because of this and because of that, and therefore I have to welcome the drawing outward and I have to do this? You're not supposed to be a psychologist. What I'm trying to say is, as far as cross-examining the appearances, the sense impressions, the defilements and like that, don't even flippin' bother. Just set up a scale like this and forget all about trying to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist. This way really is a no-brainer, because whatever is presented before you in its ever unique way is something that you can simply surf, and you can look to this middle way and hold to this middle way. There's a saying that clinging gives rise to suffering, gives rise to birth and death. And so then the question is, well, how can you practice not clinging? First, you need to cough. No, sorry. Now, how can you practice not clinging? This is it. You can hold, but you don't cling. So you by feeling establishing this equivalent of an old-fashioned scale or Christian yoke or whatever you want to call it. What happens is you can hold. That represents holding the 2 points, but you don't cling. So what does that mean? It means you don't grab onto these two things and try to wrestle yourself back to the center. No. And because that would be, you'd think it'd be being attached to the center, but that would be if you think of the center as a thing. But if you think of it as a space between things, well, then it may be somewhat different. So here's how you use letting go instead of clinging to hold to this place. Like if I'm too attached to something on this side, I'm feeling that sitting bone more than the other one. So instead of, so here's what I do. I let go. I let go to arrive perfectly in this place. And then if I'm too attached to something on this side, I let go to hold here. So the abiding in this center place is arrived at through letting go. And it may even, from the outside, it may even look like action. Like, look at that guy. He was leaning off to the side, and now look, he's changed to where he's in the middle now. You can see that there was an action there that happened. But no, brothers and sisters, that's not an action. That's inaction. That's the inaction of the Wu Wei, of the Taoists. What's that mean? It means what this leads to is you can actually use this principle to even move about in the world. And because you are so dialed into this place that doesn't miss the mark, this straight and narrow way, you can actually use I should have told you something else first, but basically it's Wu Wei, it's non-action, but you can still move about in the world. I guess I have to give you this example to show you. So the racing boats, you know, from the America's Cup, they have big old sails, and when you look at them, sometimes they'll be leaning over, and you'll think, man, look at that silly boat. It's leaning over like it's going to fall. And it's in a race. Why is it leaning? That doesn't even make sense. But you'll realize that when it leans that way, the people on the boat, they lean the opposite way, right? And then when the boat returns up, the people can move freely about the center. But then if the boat moves that way, the people lean off this way, so that the net change is zero. So what I'm saying is it is possible to be in life in such a way as to stay balanced and have the net change be zero if you have the wisdom of the Buddha, or and now I have to explain it this way. Dang it, I keep having to explain it new ways to you. So now here's what we do. As you're sitting there, you're feeling both sitting bones evenly, right? Just do this. Just do this, if you will. So, and now just put your mind on that sitting bone. Do you see that just putting your mind on that place, you feel that one more? Or return to feeling them both evenly, right? And then just put your mind on that one. You see how just putting your mind on that one, you feel that one more. So even though you start out by surfing, using the frame of the human body to surf this place, and even to practice letting go to hold to the center, you actually will learn that it's not even so much the moving of the physical posture, but you can actually, this teaches you to move your mind. That's what I'm saying, because if you can put your mind on the place that is always in the sweet spot, that's when you're freed up to move around through life and always hold to and abide in the place that the middle way, the place that doesn't miss the mark. And but you can't, it's not always easy to do that right away, so you got to start someplace. So that's why I suggest considering learning to set up a scale like that. Then the next step is, once you can abide in this center place, you'll realize that this place, you can turn this plane any direction. You can have it this way and still be in the same place, but now it's as the place between too high and too low. And then you'll learn that when you breathe, if you practice observing the breath, wherever the breath goes, the place that you observe is the sweet spot, and you'll know where it is, because if from that sweet spot you start to depart outwardly, if you start to depart upward, you'll sense that if I go up this way, it's entering into suffering, it's entering into laboredness. But it's self-evident again that if you observe, if you return to this place, there's a sweet spot between too high, too low, too far to the right, too far to the left, too far to the front, too far to the back. And what I'm saying is it's a place of refuge that you can have any time in any place. So now how does that relate to overcoming temptation and addiction? Well, you train in this way, feeling both sitting bones evenly in so many situations. Suppose a person's addicted to alcohol, for example. Well, they're sitting there like this, and they hear a couple of glasses clanging together. And kinesthetically, they'll feel that this will feel somewhat different, even if it's just 2 glasses of milk or something, you know. But still, so you learn to surf and to not lean with the even in the face of that input. And then you might hear something being poured or something like that. It might sound like maybe the sound of beer or something, or some other forbidden drink. And then you realize that you look over and they're just pouring water, right? So then you realize, oh, well, just the addition of that input, in the face of that input, it felt different here. And as a no-brainer, I'll just seek and hold to and keep to this place that doesn't miss the mark. And similarly, so you get to the point where whether it's a sound or a sight or a smell or anything, you've trained to hold to and to abide steady in this place, the place that doesn't go outward, that doesn't go out and mismatch the world. And you learn that this place is like senior to all other presentations. So you learn to just keep to this, and eventually you're actually surfing this place in the presence of the sense impressions, in the presence of the arising of the different defilements around you, those things which in all kinds of unique combinations could invite a turn away or invite a lean or a going outward into the world. But systematically, where do you start? You can train right here like this without even being a flippant psychiatrist or psychologist. Indeed, it's the way, brothers and sisters, to take no thought for the morrow, but consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And it's like the idea of the yoke, right? In Christianity, you got the yoke. People read that and they just read right past it, yeah. But there's not a whole lot of talk of how to establish a yoke. You know, they say that where 2 or more, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Well, that works for prayer. You get 2 or 3, 2 or more believers together, and that's one way to do it. But it also works if you gather 2 or more points. And the one that gathers the points simply chooses one on one side, one on the other. And because they've chosen one on each side, now they have this opportunity to surf this middle way in the midst of a changing world and to continually answer this question, lovest thou me more than these? And when you can love me more than these, that's when you no longer are drawn outward toward other things. You see, and that is a way that you can love God steadily, always and everywhere, because each slight modification asks this question, lovest thou me more than these? And then you say, I love this place, like the Holy of Holies in the heart, where you're devoted to God, the presence of God in the place of your worship more than anything that the outer world can present. So that's how you can love God always, and it's also how you can pray always too. I was in a really cool religious group that had a good prayer tradition. I'm not going to knock that. I mean, I've experienced that where they arrive at in prayer is this place, but then they just have it prescribed that you start a prayer this way, then you have the content of the prayer, and then what? Then you end it in this certain way too. So you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but just because it has the beginning and the middle and the end, then, how are you going to pray always if you have to end it? In other words, you'll be praying along and you'll think, well, I got to officially end it the official way, because that's what I've been taught. So you end it, and then you think, oh yeah, but I want to pray always, so what am I going to do? I guess I'll start it again, I mean, that's just one definition of prayer. I mean, I know people can be thinking about God always and everywhere and loving their neighbor and stuff. But I'm just saying, as relates to that one specified prayer formula, it seems like if you have to start the prayer and end it in a certain way, then you got to figure out how to pray always. That's what I'm trying to say. So this way does really work, from what I can tell, as far as overcoming addictions and temptations. I mean, it's not always, it'll work for a while and then you might fail, but then the more you practice, the more this becomes established. And this is the sila of the Buddhism, the embodiment of the moral conduct of Buddhism, that you keep this basically, and that's like putting a rock on top of grass, because now you have steadiness in the midst of a changing world. Whereas if you don't have this kind of steadiness, you might stay here for a while, but then you'll get distracted and you'll go out into the world, and then the grass of defilements or whatever, it'll grow back again. But if you can keep to this long enough, then then you can keep to the pristine place that hasn't departed outward into the mismatchings, the ups and downs, the fronts and backs, the complications of the world. It hasn't departed outward into creation. And so basically, this is the way to let go. This is how to do it. You don't do it as you might be able to do it as some kind of psychiatrist or psychologist, where you take some item of consideration and consider it around and talk to it and hug it and kiss it and then you release it. It might work in some way. There are ways in which you say what you're doing, and just the saying of it releases it and neutralizes it. But I'm just saying, if you do this way, it really is a no-brainer, because the mind is is on, right? But it's on in steadiness, and it's watching for the slightest departure. And then your task is so simple. Just simply don't lean in the midst of a changing world. You practice that a lot, and pretty soon not much in the world can throw you like it once did. And this is how it can work with temptations and defilements and overcoming temptation. So maybe look through the other videos, because I give a whole lot more information, a lot more looking at this concept from different ways, including a lot more detail on how to surf without a surfboard. And then I also include this. See these segments of the fingers? I developed this way of praying literally the rosary or mala. You could do if you want in a similar way. But you treat the segments of the fingers as if they're beads on a rosary, but you establish one contact on one side with a hand position, one on the other, and you start with symmetrical hand positions, right? And in this position, you hold to the center way. And then as you do the next prayer, you change one of these, keeping the other the same. And even though externally there is an apparent asymmetry, through it all, in the midst of this asymmetry, you still hold to and surf this same place. So, and then you keep going through all these different hand positions, always steadily holding here. And so what that does is it teaches you how to seek and find and hold and keep in this middle place, no matter what, not only the external presentations of the world, but even no matter what the postures of your own physical frame, that through it all there is still a steadiness. And to keep in this steadiness, you also learn to move the mind to do that. But you can use the posture as a guideline, because in other words, you can start feeling both sitting bones evenly, where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. So you can use those, but then in addition you can use these. And then so you have this like a middle way, and then you can go through the rosary hand positions, and as you do it, the way you do it is to keep to this middle place. So all this is training to hold here no matter what the external world does, no matter how it arrives. And so what it teaches you is how not to be afraid of the external world. You can train like this to where in the past you would have turned away, you would have fled, you would have responded in a fearful way. But when you train in this way, at the first arising of fear, you'll feel it kinesthetically in the frame of the human body, and you can surf that place in such a way as to keep centered and balanced right in the face and in the midst of fears or temptations or anything that the world can present. So anyway, much love. Hey, please like and subscribe. You may want to consider, if you live in the Provo, Utah area, you may want to consider going to the Awakening Valley Sangha or to maybe the Catholic Church. And if you want to just give me a bunch of dough to support my channel, why don't you go to, no, don't go there. Well, check out my website, PrestonFlatt.com. It's got a few links how you can support us. And like and subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much.